So we talk um, a lot about um, wise speech. And as you know, it's one of the eight of the Noble Eightfold Path, but we don't often talk about its counterpart, which is deep listening, wise listening, which is sort of the flip side of wise speech. So I want to dig a little bit deeper this morning into this practice of wise listening um, as an important part of our practice. And it's as I said, it's the other half of the equation with wise speech, and it's really the flip side of the coin. And it's a profound practice. It really cultivates presence. It really helps us cultivate compassion, and especially connection. It's really instrumental in deepening connection. So um, and it really involves quieting the inner voice of judgment. I mean, it's really like putting that on the back burner. It's fully attending to this person who's speaking to us. We bring an open heart, we bring an open mind to the exchange. And in order to do that, to deeply listen, we have to let go of any preconceived notions about the speaker's experience, about their intention. We have to really enter into it, deep listening with an openness, with a spaciousness. We suspend our own agenda. We let go of the need to try to interpret or analyze or judge what's being said. We just allow the words to kind of flow through our without filtering them through our personal lens or biases. And this is a lot harder than it may sound. And 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 our intention here is to embrace the speaker's reality as valid, even if it differs from our own. So there's an openness about it. We embody a quality of care toward the one that's speaking. We see this interaction as holding the intention to understand what the person's really saying. I mean, if you think about how often we just spend filtering whatever comes through when we're listening to someone. So we let go of distracting thoughts. We bring our full presence to the interaction. We notice not just the words, but the energy, the unspoken layers. Remember, most of communication is nonverbal, so we try to tune into the totality of what the person brings. And that includes body language, tone, facial expressions. In other words, we're listening with all of our senses. We make an effort to discern the deeper meaning of what the person is bringing, of what they're trying to say. And when our mind wanders, and it will, just as it does with our sitting practice, we gently return our attention to the speaker without judgment. We just come back to the present moment. And when we find ourselves, as we will, formulating a response while the other person is speaking, we try to let that go. We make an intention to refocus on what we're receiving, on what is being communicated. And then after the other person has spoken, then we take a pause. We kind of check in with ourselves. We try to notice what's been shared before we respond. So deep listening really creates a sacred space of presence. And this is a space where true understanding can really emerge. You know, it's bringing to the other person the gift of our full awareness so that they feel deeply heard and accepted. And this is incredibly rare, especially in our culture. But but with dedicated practice, it can become a way of being that nurtures wisdom, empathy, and deeper connection. And it's underrated these days. Listening is not really emphasized in our culture. It's really underrated. We don't value it. We don't really teach it. We don't really model it for our children, but it's a practice of pausing our own thoughts and comments and trying to understand what's being communicated. And we have to set an intention to do it. We can't just fly by the seat of our pants. We have to go into this interaction with a clear intention. Now, I'm not suggesting we do this with every conversation and every casual conversation, but I am talking about when we're engaged in a meaningful, heartfelt communication with those with whom we have a connection, a deep connection, or those with whom we're trying to establish a deep connection. So it's not necessarily even an everyday practice, but it is a practice that we want to bring to those most important relationships, those deeper relationships that we have, our mates, our family, our best friends, and so forth. So it starts with noticing and noticing what's arising in us when we're listening, noticing that urgency to express our thoughts or ideas. I mean, I do this all the time. You know, I'm talking to someone and I think, oh man, I just had this great thought and I have to share it with you. And I just kind of run over the conversation. And it's a terrible habit that I have. And I really try to rein it in. It's that pressure to speak, you know, when I feel like I really have to share something with you. And when we are able to be fully present um, before we engage with someone, so we sort of check in, establish that presence, and then we go from there. And it opens the door to perceive the subtleties of nonverbal communication. So if I'm really fully present with you and paying attention, I can pick up on the nuances and the subtleties. I can really feel what you're trying to say to me, and I can, and that really is the means of deepening the connection. And and this includes, as I said, things like body language, voice tone, emotions, and so forth. It's communication beyond the words being spoken, and usually we might be unconsciously picking up on that, but we're not really paying close attention to it. And what this does, it moves the communication into an emotional realm, which is the real source of connection. I mean, when I'm really connecting with you at an emotional level, that's the real deal. So I'm listening with my all my senses, with my own emotions, with my own intention. Because too often we communicate on autopilot, especially in casual conversation, which is fine. I mean, that's just what we do. But when I sit down with someone with whom I want to have a meaningful communication, I want to really be tuned into the more subtle aspects of what's going on. So, with deep listening, we notice what is arising without judgment. So, I'm open to whatever you're bringing to the table. You know, I'm responding honestly and skillfully with my full presence. And again, I can't emphasize how challenging this can be, but with practice, we get better at it. You know, and it doesn't mean that we don't use discernment on our parts to respond skillfully. It doesn't mean that we don't avoid prejudging or censoring what's arising. We use the discernment with whatever is arising to engage in skillful speech as we respond. So it's not unlike the mindfulness that we practice when we're meditating. You know, there's even a form of meditation and dialogue that engages the Sharon Beckman Brindley teaches that approach. But we use our mindfulness to sort of filter out a lot of the background noise, just the chatter in the back of our minds when we're engaged in skillful listening, in deep listening. And the beauty of deep listening is it's another gift that the Dharma offers us that enriches our lives. It deepens our connections. It fulfills that need for deep human connection with the people in our lives. So that is deep listening, and it is an important practice. So let me stop there and get your thoughts.